There is someone in your life right now who is slowly disappearing, and you have been fighting it, praying against it, crying over it, trying everything you can to hold on to them. But what if the distance you keep feeling is not the enemy's work? What if it is God's? Today, I want to show you something that will completely change the way you see the relationships that are falling apart around you. We are going to talk about 8 signs that God is quietly removing someone from your life and why fighting that removal may be the most dangerous thing you can do. Ecclesiastes 3:1 says, "There is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens." Not every person was designed to go with you into every season of your life. Some people were sent for a chapter, not the whole book. And when God begins to remove someone, He does it quietly, gently, gradually, because He loves both of you too much to do it harshly. But if you do not recognize the signs, you will spend your energy fighting a divine process that was designed to protect you. Sign 1. The peace disappears every time you are around them. When God is removing someone, the first thing He removes is the peace. I remember a friendship I held on to for years longer than I should have. On the surface, everything looked fine. We had history together, we had good memories. But somewhere along the way, every time I left that person's company, I felt a strange heaviness. Not sadness, exactly more like a quiet unease. Like something deep inside me was sending a signal I was not ready to receive. I kept dismissing it. I told myself I was being too sensitive. But the feeling kept returning consistently every single time. And it was only much later that I understood what it was. It was the Holy Spirit. Philippians 4:7 describes the peace of God as something that transcends all understanding. And when that peace consistently disappears in someone's presence, that is not coincidence. That is discernment. God uses peace as a compass. When He is in something, peace confirms it. When He is removing something, the withdrawal of peace is His first quiet signal. Do not ignore it. Do not explain it away. Pay attention to how you feel after every interaction, because your spirit often knows what your mind is not yet ready to accept. Sign 2. Conversations become forced and empty. When God is removing someone, the connection that once flowed naturally begins to dry up. There are relationships where conversation used to be effortless. You could talk for hours. You always had something to share. But then one day, without any dramatic falling out, without any argument, the conversation starts to feel like work. Silences stretch awkwardly, topics run dry. You find yourself reaching for things to say just to fill the quiet. I once had a mentor I deeply admired. For years, our conversations were rich, challenging, full of growth. But gradually, almost imperceptibly, the depth disappeared. We still met, we still talked, but something essential was gone. It was as if God had closed the channel between us. At the time, it confused and saddened me deeply. But looking back, I can see clearly that God was redirecting both of us. He was bringing that season to a close so that new mentors and new relationships could enter. Relationships I never would have pursued if the old one had not slowly released its grip. When the words between you and someone run dry, do not always reach for something to say. Sometimes, the silence itself is God speaking. Sign 3. Their presence begins to conflict with your growth. When God is removing someone, you will notice that staying close to them requires you to become smaller. This is one of the most painful signs because it often involves people you genuinely love. But as you grow in God, as your calling becomes clearer, as your standards rise, you begin to notice that certain relationships demand a version of you that no longer exists. They need you to stay the same, to stay comfortable, to stay silent about things God has called you to speak about. I think of the moment Abraham had to separate from Lot in Genesis 13. These were not enemies, they were family. They had walked together through great hardship. But their growth had reached a point where the land could no longer sustain both of them together. And God used that tension not as a punishment, but as a promotion. The moment Lot went one way and Abraham went the other, God said to Abraham, "Look around you. Everything you see I will give to you." The separation was the blessing. When staying in a relationship consistently requires you to shrink, God may be using that friction to push you both toward your individual destinies. Sign 4. You feel a persistent prompting to create distance. When God is removing someone, He places a quiet but persistent prompting in your spirit that will not go away. This is different from human impulse. Human impulse says, I'm angry, I need space. God's prompting is calmer than that. It is not reactive, it is not emotional. It is simply a steady, quiet, persistent nudge, the kind that keeps returning no matter how many times you push it aside. I have spoken to many believers who described this exact experience. They felt led to step back from a relationship. They ignored it once. The prompting returned. They ignored it again. It returned stronger. And almost every time when they finally obeyed, even without fully understanding why, they later discovered exactly why God had been warning them. John 10:27 says, My sheep listen to my voice. God speaks, He guides. And one of His primary languages is this quiet internal prompting that will not leave you alone. If you have been feeling a persistent, unexplainable pull to create distance from someone in your life, do not automatically dismiss it as weakness or fear. Bring it to God in prayer, ask Him to confirm it, and then have the courage to obey what He shows you. If this message is speaking directly to your situation right now, brother, sister, please subscribe to this channel and write in the comments, God, I trust your process even when it hurts. Now, let us continue because the next 4 signs are the ones most people completely miss. Sign 5. Repeated conflicts with no resolution. When God is removing someone, He sometimes uses unresolvable conflict as the instrument of separation. Not every conflict in a relationship is a sign that you need to work harder. Some conflicts are a sign that two people have grown in incompatible directions. And when the same arguments keep cycling, when you have the same conversation month after month, with no progress, no change, no resolution, that pattern is worth examining very carefully. I remember a relationship in my life that went through this exact cycle. We would argue, we would reconcile, we would promise to do better. And within weeks, sometimes days, the same conflict would return, wearing a slightly different face over and over again. And I kept thinking the solution to try harder, communicate better, be more patient. But what I eventually understood was this: the conflict was not the problem, the conflict was the symptom. God was using it to reveal an incompatibility that existed at a much deeper level, one that no amount of effort or good intention could fix. Amos 3:3 asks a penetrating question: do two walk together unless they have agreed to do so? When two people can no longer walk in agreement, God may be the one separating their paths. Sign 6. Their influence begins to pull you away from God. This is the sign that requires the most urgent response because your eternal soul is at stake. There are relationships that start well. The person may have even been part of your spiritual journey at one point, but somewhere along the way, their influence begins to shift. Subtly at first, then more clearly. You find yourself praying less when you are around them, reading the word less, making compromises you never would have made before, laughing at things that used to grieve your spirit. I think of Solomon, the wisest man who ever lived, a man who built the temple of God, who wrote Proverbs and Ecclesiastes, who heard from God directly twice. And yet 1 Kings 11:4 records one of the most heartbreaking verses in all of Scripture. As Solomon grew old, his wives turned his heart after other gods. If relationships could turn the wisest man in history away from God, they can turn you. If there is someone in your life whose presence consistently moves you away from God rather than toward Him, God is not just suggesting you create distance, He is commanding it. No relationship, no matter how long, how deep, or how much you love that person, is worth the cost of your intimacy with God. Sign 7. God keeps bringing new people to replace them. When God removes someone, He never leaves you empty. He always fills the space with something better. One of the most beautiful signs of God's removal is this: He begins to send replacements before the removal is complete. New people start appearing in your life. People who align with where God is taking you. People who challenge you, sharpen you, and carry the same spirit you are growing into. And somehow, these new connections feel more natural, more life-giving, and more purposeful than the relationship that is fading. I have experienced this personally. As one friendship gradually closed, I noticed new people entering my life almost simultaneously. People who spoke directly into my calling, who prayed with genuine power, who saw things in me that the old relationship had never been able to see. It was as if God was saying, I am not taking something from you, I am trading up on your behalf. Ruth 1 gives us a beautiful picture of this. When Naomi lost everything and tried to send Ruth away, Ruth refused. She said, Where you go, I will go. And that loyal new connection led Ruth directly into the lineage of Jesus Christ. What looked like loss was actually divine repositioning. The new people God is sending into your life right now, pay close attention to them. They may be carrying your next season. Sign 8. Deep in your heart, you already know. This is the sign that needs no external confirmation because God has already spoken it directly to your spirit. If you are honest with yourself right now, you already know. There is a person whose face or name came to your mind the moment this video began. Someone about whom you have had a quiet knowing for weeks, months, maybe even years. A knowing that you have buried under loyalty, under history, under the fear of being alone, under the hope that things will eventually change. I want to speak to you very directly right now. That knowing is not your imagination. It is not fear. It is not weakness. It is the voice of God. And He has been speaking it to you with great patience and great love for a long time. Proverbs 3:2-5-6 says, Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make your path straight. The reason the path has not been straight is because you have been leaning on your own understanding of what that relationship should be, instead of trusting what God has already shown you it truly is. You do not need another sign. You do not need another confirmation. You already have what God gave you. The only thing left is the courage to trust it. God does not remove people from your life to punish you. He removes them to protect you, to position you, to make room for what is coming next. Things so good that your current mind cannot fully comprehend them yet. Every relationship God has ever ended in your life was an act of love, even the ones that broke your heart, even the ones that left you confused and grieving, even the ones where you still do not fully understand why. He sees the end from the beginning. He knows what that person would have cost you in the season ahead, and in His mercy, He stepped in. Isaiah 43:19 gives us this extraordinary promise. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland. The removal you are experiencing right now is not the end of your story. It is God clearing the path for the new thing He is already preparing. Do not grieve the removal. Receive it as redirection. If this message spoke to your heart today, I want you to do one thing right now. Write in the comments, God, I trust your process even when it hurts. That is a declaration of faith that will shift something in your spirit today. And if you know someone right now who is fighting a removal that God may have ordained, share this video with them. It could be the word that finally gives them the courage to let go. Do not forget to subscribe to Bible Truth Zone so we can continue growing together in biblical wisdom every single week. God bless you, my brother, my sister. Until next time.